Good morning, friends. Anne here, got my cup of coffee, got the Word of God, and today's reading is from John chapter 4. In John chapter 4, this is a beautiful encounter that Jesus has with a Samaritan woman at the well. Let me tell you the story, and then I'm going to read to you just the last couple of verses that are at the end of this passage. So this encounter was one that was unexpected by this woman, but expected by Jesus. At the beginning of John chapter 4, it says that Jesus had to go through Samaria on his way wherever he was going. So he and the disciples went through Samaria. Now, here's why this is a big deal, because normally in that day and time, Jewish people would not go through Samaria. As a matter of fact, Samaria was the direct route. They would go over and around, and it would take them hours longer because they wanted to avoid Samaria, because they hated the Samaritans. And the Samaritans were people that they had a relationship with way back in their ancestral line, but then they had gone off and intermarried with other people, and so the Jews just hated them. There was racism back in Jesus' time. But what happened was Jesus went through at around noon, and this woman was there at the well. He sent his disciples on ahead to get something to eat, and Jesus has a conversation with her. And he asks her for some water, and she said, "You didn't even come here prepared to get water. I mean, you don't have a bucket, you don't have a cup, you don't have anything to dip it with." And Jesus said, "Actually, if you knew who you were talking to, you would be asking me for water." And she's like, "Well, how is that?" And Jesus says, "I would give you living water and you would never have to thirst again." And so the woman is like, "Yes, I want this living water." And so they continue to have this conversation, and he says, "Well, go and get your husband." And she said, "Well, I don't have a husband." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, because the man that you're living with now is not your husband, and you have had 5 husbands in the past." And so she gets very uncomfortable with this line of conversation, which you can imagine. And so she changes the direction of the story. And she said, "Yeah, but your people say that we're supposed to worship here, and our people say we're supposed to worship here." And they have this whole conversation about worship, and Jesus is like, "What's most important is not here or there, but that we become people who worship in spirit and in truth." And then she says this: "The woman said, 'I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us.' Then Jesus told her, 'I am the Messiah.'" She had an encounter with the one that she was waiting for, the one that she had faith in and hope in. And then it says this in verse 27, "Just then his disciples came back. They were shocked to find him talking to a woman, but none of them had the nerve to ask, 'What do you want with her?' or 'Why were you talking with her?'" 28 says, "The woman left her water jar beside the well and ran back to the village, telling everyone, 'Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah?' So the people came streaming from the village to see him." Friends, I think it's so beautiful that immediately after this woman, who was so broken in her sin, who was so ashamed at the way she had lived her life and what she was doing, was so caught up by Jesus, recognized him as possibly the Messiah, and she invited others to come and see for themselves. Friends, if you have an encounter with Jesus, share it. Don't wait until it makes sense, until you can process it, until you can figure it out, until you can explain it well. The woman just immediately went and said, "Come see the man who told me everything I've ever done. Could he be the Messiah?" She didn't have it all figured out, but she went and she told. So friends, today, if you feel like you don't know everything there is to know about faith, "I don't know, I'm not good enough, I can't tell the story right." Friends, if you've had an encounter with Jesus, go share it. Tell someone. Your story is important and your encounter matters. Have a good day.